Thank you for accommodating the meeting date and time change. We're here for our FY25 budget deliberations. It's June 20th, 2024. The time is 12 noon. In attendance are Commissioners Matari, Brooks, and Duncan, with Commissioner Brooks joining us by phone. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment. Hearing none, we'll go ahead with our FY25 budget brief, and this is including a budget, our personnel expenses, with our Director, Brandy Falcon of Finance.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. I've printed off for you only the summaries that have changed since last time, so hopefully that's okay. Starting with the preliminary summary. So right now, if we were to do a 0% tax increase, we would have a $7.3 million deficit, and then going all the way up to a 3% tax increase, we would have a $5.5 million deficit. So since the last time, some of the changes that have been made is I increased the interest revenue by $2 million. I increased community development's revenue by almost $400,000 as a result of the board agreeing to do the fee increases for them. And then the CapEx meeting, all of the items that you had chosen to fund with fund balance, initially I was going to do that, but then in looking further, if we do that, then we are using the majority of our interest revenue for ongoing costs. Because if you want to use that extra interest revenue for one-time costs, which would be capital, then we can't really use fund balance for capital. Instead, we want to leave that open to be offset by the interest revenue, which is what's being done right now. I didn't go in and use a bunch of fund balance. So that means that now we just have too many ongoing costs, basically, in the budget. So now focusing on making cuts to the A and B budget, I think, is going to get us balanced. I have not yet input any savings for cutting open positions, but I did do a calculation that I printed out for you that has like COLA scenarios for all the way from 0 to 3.5%. It's this one that has all the yellow lines on it. So you can look there, and actually let me open it so people can see it on the screen. So it shows you, just depending on what percentage you want to go with, like 3.5% for general government. If you were to cut open positions that have been open longer than 100 days by 50%, that'd be $2.2 million in savings. And then the COLA would be $2.3 million, and the steps would be $672,000. I added this column on the right for the cost of steps next year. So the steps for FY24 are only $672,000 because it's prorated, because every employee gets their step on their anniversary date, not right at the beginning of the year. But then the year after, that should be 26. But the year after, the full cost is $1.4 million. Does that make sense? So the first year with the steps is prorated. The year after, you recognize the full
Ongoing cost.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's just all the different scenarios for you to look at as you're deciding different COLA amounts. So I'm going to start with the personnel summary, which is this document right here. You should have it printed out. And I'll just scroll back and forth, I guess. So I'm going to start at the top section, which is requests for new positions. And I'm just going to go down the list. So starting with the airport, they've requested a new position for a shop lead. And I did make a notation that the airport is self-funded, so this is not going to impact our property tax. It's a total cost of $98,000.
Bill, thoughts on that?
I have no problem as long as it's self-funded.
Bruce?
Yeah, I feel the same.
Okay. Next, Building and Grounds is requesting a new maintenance assistant. This is basically our janitorial positions. So I believe this would be the 5th position. And currently it's funded at 50%. Greg said probably the soonest he would use it would be halfway through the year for the new building next year.
Thoughts?
It's the cost of growth. Obviously, if we went back to a contract I assume the contract would be more expensive because we have more square footage to maintain.
It would, but the issue is we've been lowballed in the past, and so we just don't get the service. So although.
Well, I'm not suggesting we go back there.
No, I
I'm just
know.
saying
I'm
cost-wise.
just, yeah, just for that. I mean, I'd be willing to hold off on this altogether until next year because we just don't really know what things are going to look like. And then if he has to come back mid-year for a
Okay.
position.
What are your thoughts?
I'm fine with us holding off. I mean, until we know, we're just kind of guessing that this is what we're going to need.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it probably will be the case, but I'd rather deal with that when we have the actual facts of the situation as opposed to what we think might be happening.
Yeah, I appreciate Greg thinking forward and, planning for the future and everything, but I think we have a lot going on right now, so.
Okay.
Bill?
Yes, I'd hold off.
All right, next is a request from Solid Waste for a new accounts receivable specialist. This one is also no tax impact because solid waste is self-funded.
I'm fine with this one. Bill, Bruce?
No, I recall.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
I think this is one that is necessary, and it is tied to the revenues. And if we can bring in more revenues, I think that's a positive, direction.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this had to do with AR issues before, so definitely let's
Yep.
include that.
Okay. Next is a request from Carlene, the trial court administrator. She has 2 requests for new bailiffs. Each of them cost $76,000 total, plus onboarding costs of $7,600 for each one. I believe she wants to use these in the new building.
Yeah.
That's correct. And I also have a request for a screener.
Correct. The next line, yep, is a screener for the new building
Oh,
at $66,000.
Can we make this a partial request? Because you're not going to hire these people right now, are you?
Well, they
Or
want,
it's September
Carlene can
1.
answer, but essentially they want to hire him October to get them all up to speed, but,
Yeah.
go ahead, Carlene.
Yeah, they want to get everyone trained and, make sure that they're ready to go when the building was opened.
So the building's supposed to be done right now in June, so almost a year from now.
How long does it take to get someone kind of up to speed on that?
It depends on the person and it depends upon the trainings that are available, but at least a good 6 to 8 months.
So 6 months would be January, so if you want, you could fund them by 25 or 50%.
Yeah, I'd like to look at something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think 50% would be fine if we truly need one. It's hard for me to get there once everybody's moved in and then the scheduling starts, so it's,
How much of a drop-off do we think we're going to have at the current courthouse after the expansion is complete?
I don't think we'll have a drop-off.
What do you mean by drop-off?
As far as activity, people
sorry.
coming in and out of the building? I mean,
It'll remain the same and it will increase. The way we're operating right now is, the judges are sharing courtrooms. It's not uncommon for one to walk out and one to walk right in. It's going to be the same amount of cases, and it will increase due to the population and the growth. So it will not taper off.
well, if it's the same amount of cases, wouldn't we be switching some of the cases from the current courthouse to the new courthouse?
We're going to get through the
No,
courthouses faster. So instead of, if you had
And
a
those-
civil trial, sorry, Carlene, if you had a civil trial and they said, okay, it'll be 4 months before you can have a jury trial, now it may only be 30 days, depending on scheduling. So, again,
All the
I would
case
say-
flows will remain with the judges.
Well, I think if anything, we should at least mark these to be revisited at a lower percentage than 100%.
yeah.
you want me to just start with, like 50% right now?
I'm comfortable with 50%. Bill?
I would, I'd go 25%, but I can live with 50.
Okay.
Okay, we'll mark those at 50% for now. Next is a request from Carly, well, actually, this one was approved today at the HR meeting. It's the Veterans Court Coordinator, so I will get that removed. And I'm just gonna note, approved in FY '24. So next is a request for a new civil attorney from the prosecutor's office for a total cost of $164,000.
When I first started here, we had Barry Black, who was a supervisor, but he had a civil caseload. And it worked out fine, I think, for a while. But I think now, at least in my experience, we've been waiting for civil opinions. And so I can see the need for this.
If I may.
Yes.
Stan Mortensen for the record. In previous deliberations, I've brought up various reasons why my office needs a fifth civil attorney. And I was actually going to bring this up today. Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. I don't think I've yet put explicitly on the record the history of my office. Commissioner Duncan, you're absolutely correct. Quite a few years ago, this office had a fifth civil attorney. It was Barry Black. He was a chief. He carried a caseload. My predecessor, Barry, I'm not questioning his judgment. I think it was a wise decision. But when Barry Black retired, somebody was promoted into a chief position, but they were put over in the criminal division. So now my criminal division has two chiefs. I'm arguing that that should not be disturbed, that my two criminal chiefs are indispensable on the criminal side of the house. But it did leave my civil division wanting, and I think the county is experiencing the fallback from that. So I'm not asking to replace Barry Black with a chief in the criminal division. I'm asking to get a fifth deputy, and I'm asking for that at a much lower rate than what a chief would be paid. And so, Commissioner Duncan, you're absolutely right. Now the work is being divided by 4 instead of 5, and they're being inundated every day. And I think the county needs a fifth civil attorney so that work can get done faster, and so that my deputies are not doing the work of more than one attorney. And also, I talked to Commissioner Matari about this. I would be willing to wait until January 1st, perhaps even halfway through the year for this position, but I would much rather wait no later than January 1st. So I'd like to throw that out there. It might help the budget if it's not directly on October 1st.
I don't think it helps the budget at all. I think it just delays what we're going to face next year. So I rather, account for the whole thing this year, this FY25.
We're looking at 167,000. So what are we getting for that in exchange in value? And I'm not suggesting there isn't a need, but what I'm asking is, okay, so we're waiting a little bit for some decisions. Okay, is that costing the county money because we can't get these decisions in a more timely manner?
That might not, but that's not the only thing the county is experiencing. A fifth civil attorney, we could go more aggressively after code enforcement. That's a area of revenue for the county. Also, with conflict or outside counsel, would be less of a need for my office to declare we're at capacity, we need to hire outside counsel. We're not going to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to hire a private attorney to do what a county employee could do.
Sure.
That would save the county money as well.
Do we have an idea of how much?
That's really hard to calculate. I could tell you this year alone, again, it's tens of thousands of dollars. I know that when outside counsel was approved by the board, the numbers weren't put on the record, but I know the board's well aware of what the county's paying to pay that private attorney to handle those issues. So it's at least that much.
Yeah.
I have a question. Which do you need more, the investigator or the civil attorney?
If I had to pick between the two, I would pick the civil attorney this year.
It has caused frustration in the past to wait longer, but if the board were to recognize the patience needed to get legal opinions further down the road instead of a 2-week turnaround, I mean, that's just a...
Look, I don't think it, I agree with you in the sense that, no one wants to have to sit and wait just to get answers to oftentimes simple questions. And that's what they are a lot of times. But given the aggregate situation, every little bit that we address contributes towards that. And, we're still trying to fill positions, and we're also asking to add more positions. And so I know your office, Stan, has done pretty good on the criminal side within the past 6 months, filling a bunch of positions. You had 5 open, and you filled 4 so far?
We're nearly full. We have 1 open position, and that's the frozen position that reopens in October, hopefully. If it weren't for that, and that's because we hired somebody, but they don't start till July. We just had one of our deputies get picked to be the newest magistrate, so that's an opening that we weren't expecting, but we just interviewed somebody last week, and it looks promising. So we're basically full, or we will be, because we're short 1 person, and we're hoping to fill that in October. So yes, we've made strides with filling open positions this last year.
So what about a part-time attorney?
That, we've talked about that. I mean, that would be better than not having a 5th attorney, but I realistically don't know what that would look like. I don't know who would step away from what they've already established in a private practice and give up clients to handle part-time county work. I've talked with my 4 civil attorneys about that, and we're highly anticipating if that happens, that position's going to go unfilled for a long time.
What about this? Do we pay our conflict attorneys a similar, on the public defender side, do we pay them a market rate or a slightly below market rate because we guarantee a certain amount of business? Because I'm just wondering if it wouldn't make sense to try to set up an arrangement with a private attorney to do civil work for us, but we guarantee a certain number of hours, and in exchange, it's a slightly lower rate.
We can always look at that. I don't know what we pay outside counsel right now,
Yeah.
so we could look at
I'm
that.
okay holding off for a little bit. I realize it's frustrating, and you probably ask a little more questions than I do, but
Oh, it's more of, I don't like to see some of our attorneys be further burdened. And I feel like when I go knock on their door because I have to have an answer, that, it's like, oh, she's here again. I mean, they're fantastic, Stan. Don't misunderstand me, but again, we're trying to pay the employees here more. So
And the other
It's-
thing too, and I'm sorry if I'm
Nope.
interrupting, is that we've also discovered where we have people who are doing $25 an hour work, but are getting paid $75 an hour. And so I'd rather find support staff if you have, your higher paid people doing support level work, and that saves money and it opens up a lot more productivity.
My office has taken that upon us. We're doing our best to find those instances. However, we've also discussed the fact that in the legal profession, the attorneys do ultimately have to review anything anyway, because before they can put their name on it, they have to say that they saw it. And so, although we can try to filter things before they get to the attorney still has to see it and approve it or deny it, because if the attorney's name is put on it and then it goes before a judge or there's an adverse ruling or whatever, all that responsibility and discipline and everything falls back on the attorney. And it's no excuse for an attorney to say, well, I didn't look at that because I had a $25 employee make the decision for me.
Well, they
Yep.
shouldn't be making decisions for you, but they should
No.
be doing the basic research, and you should have confidence in their abilities. If they can't provide good, solid research, then they probably shouldn't be there. So that's really what it was at, because we had one attorney who was going line by line through every email, looking for certain keywords, I believe. And that was just taking up exorbitant amounts of time. at the expense of things that, that's something that a qualified assistant could do.
The assistant could do it, but again, I still think the attorney has to double check things before they put their name on it. And so then the attorney's doing the same thing the legal assistant just did. The legal profession is different than any other profession in our society.
Let's just say this. Again, we're trying to get steps, we're trying to get a COLA, we're trying to do all that. You and I have a meeting yet to be scheduled, so I want to talk to you about some further ideas and cut it now, and then if we can't get something worked out, then we can revisit it.
Certainly.
But I mean, I just have some ideas that are coming to mind, and I don't think it's appropriate to bring them up now, so.
No, I appreciate the board's consideration. I'm sympathetic to the board's decisions they have to make. Either way, the budget's going up, so thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
So, do you want to just put these like on the yellow zone where they're not completely off and out of sight and out of mind, but they're...
Well, I mean, I think if Stan agrees with an alternate path, then we probably could remove both of them.
But you'll talk with him about that later.
Yeah.
So we'll just put it on the yellow section, likely to be cut, but don't cut it just yet.
So I'm going to mark this civil attorney as a potential.
Revisit.
Yeah, a revisit.
So you want me to leave it in for now? Okay. And then what about the investigator, which is the next line? That's 99,000.
I think that was the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Is that how you understood it?
I'm fine to cut it. I mean, we all need these positions. It would be great.
Well, then
But
cut it.
it's one, yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
Bill, jump in here if you have any thoughts, please.
I am. I think you're both on the right track.
All right. I marked the investigator as a cut. Next is a request from the sheriff for a background specialist. Total cost of $68,000.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson for the record. This is a position going off of your directive last week, definitive needs to continue on with the organization. This is a direct reflection to our admin overtime request. We have someone who is currently in that position is doing the work of two people. So this was for us to put this forward for a necessity to ensure not only the sanity of our employee, but more importantly, the minimization of our OT for Administrative Bureau. Captain D can speak more to the fact of the possibilities we have internally, but it is a definitive need in his bureau to move forward with for the county.
What'd you come up with, Captain Deke?
As you're both aware, I was here a month ago asking for this position. It is needed. We have, about a year ago, because of the background need, we displaced somebody who was normally helping with training to assist with this background need that we're asking for a position for. We've been doing this for a year. We know the need is there. We would like to replace the person back into training. That's where we're struggling. Our training unit has quadrupled the number of on-site trainings that we do, which has mitigated our expenses, sending people away from here if we can get stuff here. They're also bringing in revenues for that training as well. It's well overdue, and the person that's doing all that training right now is falling far behind.
But we talked about freezing a position somewhere else in order
That's up
to
to
have
you guys.
this.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, but you didn't find me a place where you could
Freeze
freeze
another
one?
position. I thought it was 911
we have a
or
lot, we have
something.
open positions. We haven't had that discussion with you guys.
Right.
If this is the position we want to, we're willing to do that. Much like this position or the request like we discussed for our SROs, we're taking from the same pool. We're not backfilling or increasing the size of the sheriff's office for years past. Not to this board by any means, but your predecessors, we've taken, but we haven't gone back and fulfilled the needs. So if the request from the board is for us to, if you will, cannibalize another position internally, we have an option for that. It's just a matter of the direction you want to go forward. We're still trying to increase our overall staffing for the organization going forward.
Right. So my thoughts were, since we can only hire so many 911 operators because of the training schedule, that we take one of those positions and we freeze it in order to fund this position, because once we're full in 911, we're not going to need so much in backgrounds, right? So that kind of offsets that time-wise, and we can revisit it all year long to make sure that that balance is remaining.
Sure.
Because then if you are able to hire more 911 and, and do that, then we can unfreeze
We
positions.
do also have other positions that we've had a very difficult time fulfilling. Those are the custody tech positions, and dollar for dollar, they're more equal in,
Okay.
I guess, rank, if you want to call it that, on the pay scale. I would much prefer to cannibalize one of those if the sheriff and the undersheriff agree to that, and the board.
And again, if that is the direction that we want to go, I'm all for that, but I want to ensure that with, like we did with our capital, that pending the return of our revenues, if this is an option down the road where we have an ability to fill a custody tech, which we are going to go forward on another option here shortly, I would ask that we can come back before the board based on that.
How many custody techs open right now?
It's like about 9.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd be comfortable with that because I'm not sure how soon we could get 9 through backgrounds and trained.
What's interesting here is that even if we increase the taxes, we're still short. And what I don't want to do is be in the position of telling you how to do your job. I don't know your job. But there is a capacity limit to the amount of money that the county is going to have next year. And so I'm almost inclined to say, here's the total amount that we can allocate to the sheriff's office, and you guys figure out how to make it work. Because according to Brandy, with a 3% raise, we're still 5.5 million in the red.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the business of telling you how to do your business. I don't know what's more important. Commissioner Duncan's correct. As you hire more people and fill more positions, your background's needs should diminish because you're not. And so I'm inclined to look at what the board wants to do with taxes, and then how much money we can allocate to the different elected officials and the departments, and then say, you guys figure out how to make it so.
Well, I would ask then at that point that we look at what we're doing now. We're cannibalizing a position to fund a position. We would do the reverse at that time when we are full. We would not ask for a new position. We would just return that position back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I think you guys are the ones that are best prepared to decide how to do that, when to do that. I don't see why you should be coming before the board to say, oh, well, we only have 2 more positions left, so we're ready to, you make those changes, you make that decision. And obviously, statutorily, I think we just have to approve some of this stuff, but.
Yeah.
Are you okay with us bringing this forward in the next business meeting as well to start at FY25? The need is there now. I've got one person that is probably going to leave if we don't do something.
And again, going along what you said, Commissioner Matari, if it's, our need is now. So if we're willing to cannibalize that position, I'd ask that we be able to come back before the board and put that into effect right now to utilize and put that position into effect.
It is
So-
still a budget consideration for next year too, because we've got to fund that. But
Yeah.
I'd like to,
We're not going to have any salary savings on the jail side, correct?
No, but I mean, you're so past that at this point. I mean, everything you approve, you've been over, but it's over budget, so. It's been over budget from the beginning, so.
Do they have salary savings on the patrol side?
I would have to go look.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't see a problem for me bringing it forward for Tuesday. We'll get all the finances looked at, but it may still be a no. You have to wait till October if we can't find the finances.
Yeah, I think what the board should be probably talking about is just, what we want to do with taxes and what we want to do with allocating, some of these asks that are operational and staffing. Obviously, the capital is different. and say, here's what we can give you. You figure out how best to get your job done with the limited resources we have. I'm just so fearful that we're going to get into this line item telling people how to do their job. And we just don't know. We don't know what the best answer is, but they do because it's their job.
The commissioners did that at one point, and my recollection, it did not work out well. There was a board, one or two before me, and they kind of said that. They kind of allocated that, and they had a lot of mid-year requests. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's just a danger of doing it that way. If you have a proposal,
Well, I think that it comes down to people operating in good faith, because we could cut the budgets and they could still get mid-year requests. And we do get mid-year requests, which sometimes I wonder why we're getting these mid-year requests, especially with staffing, because we shouldn't have to not know that we need somebody in 6 months when we're doing our budgets. We shouldn't be kind of hit up with that.
well, when you're asked to prepare a budget 18 months in advance of when you're going to be using it, that's what's difficult.
Well, some of these mid-year asks start in January.
Yeah, we do our budget 8 months ahead of time. But, so I'm gonna write to bring forward an FY '24. Do you also want them to bring forward a position to be frozen as well?
Yes.
And
Is there still money available in that mid-year pool? And you
Yes.
asked about salary salvage, but I know there's money allocated for the board to make those adjustments mid-year. And I think it's a $20,000 ask that we're looking for the balance of FY '24 for that position. And then obviously the rest would be budgeting for '25.
Yeah, we could use some of that mid-year pool for FY '24. If you freeze the position, that's going to affect FY '25's budget though, and get us closer to balance.
Yeah, and one other component to this too is we have our steps and we have the prospect of a COLA. And so I think I can speak for the board a little bit on this. We respectfully ask that the other elected officials and department heads decide what's more important, including that step, having a COLA, or some of these other asks. Because again, there's an actual finite limitation to how much money is out there. I know I would like to see us take care of the people that we have right now, and try to keep that and continue that year over year. But we don't want to be in a situation where we have to tell you, this is how you have to do your job, and by the way, we can't take care of the staff, or we can take care of the staff, and by the way, you can't get anything you're asking for, or it's severely reduced. And so that's something that I think would be helpful, just to understand that priority from the other elected officials.
Kind of think I've been asking that all along. So,
Then, are we done on that line item?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next is another request from the sheriff for a property and evidence specialist, also for $68,000.
Commissioners, based on our discussions on Monday with our capital requests, we're going to remove this from the budget.
All right, I'm gonna mark that one as cut. Next is a request for a warrants and records clerk for $65,000, also from the sheriff.
So I want to say that this one is taking somebody who was temporary and making it a permanent position, but we would use the money that was spent on the last person plus dip into the $245,000 temporary. I'm not saying it right. It's temporary workers, right? The ones who do transport
There's-
and jail. Is that right?
Are you talking about the jail has a budget for temporary and seasonal?
Yes,
too?
yeah.
So you're wanting to reduce that budget, is what you're saying?
Well, that's what we talked about when they originally presented their budget, but.
They had said they can't do that, but I'll let
Oh.
them.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Captain Jeremy Howell for the record. So the position that we're asking for is being filled by a temp seasonal, out of the temp seasonal budget for the last several years. But we were on track to overspend that if he would have stayed through this entire fiscal year. So right now, we're on track to spend out that budget item or that line item and come in right out or just under, so there's no savings by him retiring, other than we're not gonna go over budget on that.
And with the consideration, obviously, what the board is discussing, again, definitive needs, this is a need. We can go without understanding, again, if I would ask, based on the revenue, return to the revenues, we could possibly come back and consider it, because going forward, we're gonna have to replace that within the realm of the organization to continue on more efficiency within the jail itself.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And one of the things too that's a challenge is that we're using estimates on your revenues. I mean, and your revenues have actually come in much higher than our previous estimates. And, you know, that's actually, it's worked out well in that sense. And I think those revenues need to be plowed back into the positions and the people, if we can do that. So it's just a matter of understanding what those revenues are going to be. And once we know that, then we can make better decisions.
So what are you wanting to do for this item?
Well, I still don't think it should be a full 68,000 because the position was filled out of that 245,000, that temp budget. So,
The way it was explained to me was those temp positions, there's several of them that are open, so that if they were ever to actually fully staff all those temporary positions, they would use more than what is currently budgeted.
right. But again, we address the pay in the jail, so theoretically, we should be getting detention deputies and maybe not have to rely on the seasonal pool as much.
Okay, so you want to reduce the seasonal budget? What do
To
you want to do?
if we pay for this position.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, how much money is left over in the seasonal budget?
I think that's what they're saying is they are not going to be this year.
They will have used it all.
Correct.
Yeah.
But using it all was because they paid for this position. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is it something that you can continue to use the pool for and not make it a full-time permanent position?
If we're using, so the employee that was filling that was on a lower pay rate because he was only doing warrants clerk positions. The temp seasonals for the transport deputies at a higher rate but less than a full-time employee. Currently, we have one of those higher paid temp seasonal deputies doing part-time work in there to help cover the gap. So we're spending more money on it at that.
So we need a lesser hourly position.
Yes, ma'am.
But can't you still fill it with someone else?
Somebody within the jail.
No, I mean outside, bring somebody in from the outside using that same fund.
Using the temp seasonal? That would be an HR question if we're able to hire them as a lower wage person.
Well, I mean, you
don't
have
know.
that right now today, right?
Right.
Yes,
But
so that's what
we're
I'm
on
saying.
track to spend it though.
Well, because they're using a higher paid person to fill in the gaps, right?
If I'm understanding correctly, we have a set rate for our seasonal temp, which is the hourly rate. And this position has been filled by someone who's not being paid that. So if we're going to defer from that, we're going to have two different pay grades within the seasonal temp. That's going to make it very interesting for a hiring process going forward because, again, you just tell them that you're getting.
How is it the person's being paid less than that now?
I don't know.
Okay.
I inherited that.
So that's all I'm saying is
I
why
understand
not
what you're
one
saying.
for one?
I don't know what the rules are regarding that position, and
I believe it's because it's a sworn position, or a regular employee position that was backfilling for that. It was a retired deputy, prior filling that temp seasonal position. They were paid at a higher rate than the clerk, They were getting paid a higher rate than the clerk that is now filling in to do that work. Does that make sense?
Well,
So we're all sitting at the table and I'm the deputy that leaves, and you're the clerk that is now going to take those responsibilities over, and you're getting paid less than that temp seasonal hourly rate
correct.
because of the experience they came with. They were a 30-year person that could do anything. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but you can't hire another clerk to fill that position.
yes, ma'am. According to Marcia, we can hire at any rate in that pool. So yes, we can hire somebody just for that as a temp seasonal.
Okay.
and pay less.
Yes.
We should try that then.
Okay.
So does that mean I should mark this one as a cut and they'll just use their temp seasonal to hire someone to do this work?
I think for now, if I'm hearing it correctly.
Yes, we'll go after the temp seasonal at a lower rate.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is also a request from the sheriff's office for on-call pay for their maintenance staff for a total cost of $15,000.
What's the on-call pay for detectives?
I think it's the same, $2 an hour.
Yeah.
So this is the same, $2 an hour.
Yeah. You know, the detectives, I think, you know, we kind of had that discussion and, you know, just the immediacy of securing a crime scene and stuff like that. I'm not so sure it would be, you know, appropriate on the maintenance to get the same.
Commissioner, I'll speak to that. We just recently had an issue that was not only an inmate safety issue, but a jail staff immediate issue. And our point of contact, if you will, the contact person for the weekend on maintenance took over 5.5 hours to get there because they're not required to be subject to call. They're just the contact person. So when we have legal or liability issues through statutes to ensure the safety of both our staff, but more importantly, the inmates, Tom has been asking, according to him, for years, and in discussion with Captain Howell, who oversees the jail, they see it as a definitive need going forward because our jail, as it was built many years ago, tends to garner much of their attention in regards to repairs ongoing continuously.
Okay.
And as if we don't have a maintenance individual on call to be called in for overnight or on the weekends, and we have to call a plumbing company or locksmith company to come in, and we're going to be spending more than that to have private companies come in and address the issues throughout the night.
Bill, you have thoughts? Is he still with us?
Bill, are you muted? He thought that he may have to.
I am.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So Bruce is
Yep.
asking your thoughts on sheriff's maintenance workers getting on-call pay.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Well, after listening to the deputies, I believe that it does make sense. The question is, should it be the same amount?
I think because we're asking somebody to sacrifice their time while they're on call to limit what they're doing and where they're going, I think that if the county, it'd be up to you guys to determine if everybody that's on call in the county gets the same rate, but I think it makes sense because we're asking them to do the same thing, to sacrifice their time to be prepared to come in.
Yeah, I think just the only issue is just the fact that because others do ask for on-call pay, we have to be able to articulate well those reasons, the reasons why.
Yeah.
Because we have to deal with the others.
Right.
And so if your rationale is very clear, like they have to drop what they're doing, they can't drink when they're off duty, they have to be showing up within a certain amount of time, and that's kind of defined out, then we can use that as a standard and then ask the other folks when they ask for on-call pay, do you meet that standard? And if you do, then it warrants the pay. If you don't meet the standard, then it doesn't warrant the pay.
Do you have an on-call policy?
For the maintenance, no, we don't.
Well, I mean,
But for
just
the
for
sheriff's
any.
office.
Or in
Sheriff's
general.
office in regards to a time of arrival, et cetera. Yes, we have a practice in place, so we can apply that to maintenance in the same manner.
Okay.
The reality is we're asking someone to alter their lifestyle or their personal, and again, this one response that we had, he was out with his family. He's the point of contact. If we're asking them to be local and respond in the same manner as we will liability and legal statutes for purposes of the safety of our personnel, I think it's the same. We just go that forward.
And that's fair. It's just making sure that there's a standard so that we can equate the pay with the standard.
Understood.
And that's something that I know we talked about earlier, about having things standardized.
Yep. Okay, next.
So it sounds like you both are approving this?
Keep it on.
Okay. Lastly is a request from the Sheriff's Office for a new sergeant for NIC for a total cost of $128,000 and then onboarding costs of $94,000, which includes one new vehicle.
Commissioners, going forward, in regards to the vehicle, we can work without that. I will tell you, much like everything else, with a lieutenant and a sergeant currently out in NIC running the academies there, our current sergeant, who's here right now, soon to be a lieutenant here in the next few weeks, is running between the academy, learning his new job to be, and also backfilling a patrol because of FMLA and requested time off. Again, we've taken on the opportunity to run the academy, but we keep pulling from the same source and not backfilling it. Hence the reason, again, going back to the terminology that Commissioner Duncan used, it's not a definitive need, but it's definitely a need that we need to address, if not now, going forward, because we're spreading thin our supervisory capabilities within the field. As I spoke to on Monday, there's been ongoing negotiations or discussions with NIC. Currently, right now, they're upping their contributions to the county from $100,000 to $150,000. We had discussions with them about offsetting the cost of that sergeant's position, like they do SROs with the school districts, to 70%. We had verbal agreement that their financial officer will work going forward, because their budget's already in place for this year, accepting that 70% to offset the cost, which would be upwards of $200,000 of them contributing to not only the lieutenant, but the sergeant's position, who's going to be working out there.
So how much of an offset do you think as a percent of the ask here?
What do you think, Steph? The offset, percentage of
Well,
offset?
the current
Step up here.
lieutenant that works out there, their loaded cost is a little over 200,000.
Yeah.
Then we add this position for 128, so then we're at 328. And I think the revenues they're gonna be giving us is 150, is what
Yes.
he just said.
Yep.
So that's new revenue if we have the sergeant.
I think that they should, I think they should still give us the 150 because the lieutenant costs over 200,000. Are they still gonna give us the 150 even if we don't do this new position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they've agreed to go forward from 100 to 150, but then our discussions with them last week was, would you consider the 70% which we have for school districts for SROs? And they said yes. They asked what that amount would be, and it was approximately 193,000 off the top of my head. And they agreed, well, we'll work towards going 200,000 for their trustees. And that explains, because as I've explained before, the lieutenant position out there is a full release. They are a paid employee, but they're a full release out there. The sergeant, whether it's patrol sergeant or a jail sergeant, is subject to call, if you will. If we have a need and there's nothing going on at the academy, they can come back and fulfill staffing needs or backfill, like our current patrol sergeant is right now, spread thin between backfilling and patrol, trying to learn his new position to be. So they were in agreement that they can understand why the one full release and paying 70% of this other employee who will be there, but subject to call for our needs as a county for the sheriff's office.
So of the 320,000, are you saying 193 is 70%?
I would have to look at wasn't a part of that 70% calculation, so
No, it can't be.
I'd have to go back and look at that.
So if you can do that for me, I forgot it.
We were going off of Lieutenant Wager's pay and the new sergeant pay, and then we just did 70% of that, would have been 193. But I don't know if you're thinking of Mark's pay.
Is it loaded or unloaded?
It might have been unloaded. Might have been
Okay.
unloaded.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and just kind of compare the math between, and I also am probably thinking of a different lieutenant as well, because they just did another switch. So if you want, we can just revisit this one. I can go back and look at the 70% with them. I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah, because if you just do the 128 plus the 200, that's over 200,000 is 70%, so. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I very much understand the dilemma here, but until we have that 70%, it's still, Kootenai County is subsidizing the,
When do you think the
Academy.
board, I'm sorry,
it's okay.
when do you think the board over at NIC would see this issue and be able to make a decision on it?
I believe it'll be next year. They've already set their budget for this year, correct me if I'm wrong. So they've agreed, and that's this year going forward, 150, but it'll be for fiscal year next year for them to bring before their trustees before then to gain that 70%.
So 25 or 26?
26.
26, okay. I say just keep it for now.
And their budget is July to June.
And we could also look at maybe like 50% as an option.
Yeah.
50% for right now?
Okay, so I'll mark it as, I'm gonna cut the vehicle and fund it at 50%. All right, so that's the last of the requests for new positions. Now, the section down below is requests for changes to existing positions. So starting at the top.
Leslie,
Yeah, Bill?
I have an appointment in about 8 minutes I need to be available for. So I'll ring off at 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
So I went through yesterday and just kind of looked at everyone's overtime budgets and singled out certain ones that were not utilizing their budget and could probably be decreased. So this first line item is one of those. It's the BOCC's overtime budget. And I discussed with Leanna, and she was comfortable reducing it from $500 to $300. So I assume you'll want to approve that because it's a budget reduction. But
Do you have an overall amount from everybody who's reduced their overtime?
right now it's about 10,000, and I just got word before the meeting Carlene is going to reduce hers, which will be another 10,000. So it'll be 20,000 total.
Okay, and are you
Reduced.
still waiting to hear from other people?
The only ones I haven't heard back from yet is the assessor and recorders as well. And I think I'll probably end up reducing theirs. They're
Okay.
not large
So I
amounts,
think
though.
we can count pretty much on 20,000 then as the number.
Yep.
That's for overtime budgets right now?
Yeah, there's just going to be a lot of small overtime budgets as we go through doing reductions because they're not using the full amount. I looked at a 3-year trend. And so I just reached out to them. And I didn't make them, but if they were okay with it, if they agreed, they all reduced their budgets by certain amounts. So that first one is BOCC, total reduction by $240.
So, okay, I'm on the right page now.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, any reduction is fine at this point.
Okay. Next line is in the BOCC's budget. It's the employee referral bonuses. These are the bonuses HR pays out when current employees refer new employees, and they're requesting to increase by $11,000. So going from $18,000 to $30,000. It's being offset by the next request. They're wanting to reduce the temporary employment budget by $22,000.
But the referral is really an offset too from operating.
Yes, advertising, yep,
Yeah,
Okay. So are you okay with the increase to the referrals?
yes.
yes.
Okay. And then the next line, there's a pool of money in general fund that people can use if they use like a temp agency, and it just has not been utilized. So HR is requesting to reduce it by $22,000 from $70,000 to $48,000.
What's the closest we've come to actually utilizing it?
I think maybe, since I've been here, maybe half. Like 35,000 maybe we've used.
Can we cut more?
Sure, I could go back and look.
I'm looking behind you there, Brandy, sorry.
Yeah, I could run a report for a trend on it real quick. not logged into New World, so.
We did look at like the 5-year trend, and I think there was a year or so, I don't think I have that documentation with me right now. Are you getting into New World?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's look at that first.
Well, I'm thinking
We
like half.
haven't
and
used
they come
any of it
before.
this year. And then we started doing it where we were,
So in 2020, we
54.
spent 2,400. 21, we spent none. 22, we spent, well, okay, it's a little confusing
It
because
is.
what we do as a budget amendment and actually doesn't get spent from here, it gets moved to the department.
yeah.
So actually, in 20, we spent 54, 16,000. 21, actually, we spent almost the whole thing. 22, we spent 9,000. 23, we spent 35,000, and this year we haven't spent any. So last time we really used a lot was 2021.
And I think mostly it's for FMLA and backfilling some things that, we're not doing away with the position, but we need it
Yeah, it's
filled
like if you're using
temporarily.
a temp agency for something, temporary.
Yeah. So I'm fine cutting it in half.
You want to do 35?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You write that down, 35,000. All right, next line is a request from Buildings and Grounds to convert one of their maintenance operator positions to full-time. They said that there is the potential that one of their part-time employees may retire next year. And so in the event that that might happen, they want to have the budget to convert that position back to a full-time position.
I think we cut this and visit it if that does happen.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that as a cut. The next request, there is no financial impact. Community Development just wants to rename their building inspectors to Building Inspector 1, 2, and 3. And then the next two lines are them requesting to regrade 2 building inspectors from Building Inspector 2 to 3. For each of them is $6,300.
Did you get any information as to how do you quantify a 2 or a 3?
That would be an HR question, because HR reviewed this request.
All right.
Or
And
Chris.
Christina's here.
Christina Garland. To promote from a 1 to a 2, the inspector must possess a minimum of 2 certifications. And in order for them to promote from a 2 to a 4, they must possess a minimum of 4 certifications.
How many people do you have right now that would promote up to a 2 or a 3?
So all of my staff members right now, actually my new employees, which I have 3 new, one of them is considered a 2. He probably will not be promoted to a 3. I think I would have maybe 1 to be promoted as a 4, possibly another at 50% within the budget year. So I'd say 1 to a 4.
I would just say at this point, leave 1 in because it's about $400 more than the decrease in overtime that they just cut, and then take the other one out.
I was just curious as to what more we get with the certifications. What does that mean from a productivity standpoint?
So that means that they're, since they have more certifications, they can do more extensive inspections based on commercial. We do commercial projects. A lot of my Inspector 2s right now are not doing any of those, so I need to pull someone that, say, is up in Athol and go down to Worley to do a commercial inspection. It's not efficient because we're using more inspection time and also the vehicle maintenance. to perform these inspections.
Well, I hear you. I like the idea of it. But maybe we can do this steps over the next couple of years and just start with what Commissioner Duncan said and then revisit the balance of this for the following year.
So to cut which one? Because right
One
now,
of-
they are, right now, essentially, I have, if they were put into this category, I have 2 and 3. I don't have any ones right now.
So on our paper, it says that you have 2 requests, I assume, going from a 2 to a 3.
Yes,
Okay.
going from a 2 to
So
a
right
3.
now, you have people in your department that are qualified for a 3.
Correct.
Okay. So then, talking about next year, they're already qualifying that today, but then next year, you have more people qualifying for higher.
I could be, if they got their certifications.
Okay. So the other thing that we can do is like the assessor, you have so many assessor 1s, you have so many assessor 2s, you have so many assessor 3s, and they don't move up because there's no opening for it. So that's just another way to handle that.
I'm looking at it like, how can we get more efficiency out of it? Because we're kind of looking at fee structure and a few other things
Correct.
in the future. And so it would be nice to be able to say that, okay, this person has these credentials, they can do more,
Right.
right? And here's how it makes a difference on the bottom line. So that can convert into how we develop our fees with that. Now, on this sheet, it says level 3 for both of them.
Yeah, both of them are promoting from a level 2 to a level 3.
So currently, they're considered level 1 and level 2. So we would be creating the level 1 at a grade 8. Level 2 becomes the grade 9, and the level 3 is the grade 10.
And are they all currently a 9?
They're all either 9s or 10s right now.
So it would have very minimal effect then, basically.
12 grand for the 2 people who qualify, but there really isn't a spot for them. This would
Yeah.
be creating a higher spot.
I do like the idea at least of having the slots like the assessor's office for right now. I would like to talk more about, what these positions can do if we were to have more.
I think what would be helpful to us, because if we're going to approve the item above it, then it would make sense to approve those 2 things as well. So I think that it would be helpful to have a little spreadsheet to say, level 1 is this much money, level 2 is this much, and list out the certifications as well, and how many people you have that qualify for which position, and how many they're in now.
Okay.
It'd just be easier to see that instead of we have people who would do that.
Okay.
I guess just leave it in for now, but mark it yellow.
Yep.
Okay,
yellow.
we'll just note that community development needs to provide more information to you. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Next is a request from community development. This is another overtime budget that they agreed to decrease by $5,900.
I'm fine.
Okay,
What is the total?
so they're going from
Oh,
25,000
All right,
to
I
20.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next is a request from Repro Graphics to convert the graphic production specialist to an assistant Repro Graphics manager for $7,900.
And that is for a succession plan, is that correct?
Pardon?
Was that for a succession plan?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking to have that person move up to assistant manager so they can learn my role, and then when I do retire, they can just step right in. I'm hope that they can really take on a lot of the duties to really know how to do the job, because I've been there, quite a few years, and there's a lot to information to hand down to this person before I do retire.
So I haven't seen the job description or anything like that, but they would be a manager over 1 And so I just want to make sure if we're looking at this, that we are fully aware of what's going on.
Well, that, and I think if you're going to plan for succession here, then we should have a sense of how long that would be. Because I would see the position as being temporary, so that, when the day comes that you do retire, they will take your position, and then the assistant manager role either converts back.
That's what the direction I was thinking, yes, it would convert back to just the graphic production specialist.
So we have other departments who handle it by $1 an hour lead position, and that would be $2,080 instead of the, $7,900 or whatever. It's just another option. So, but I would like to see
And just a time frame.
yeah.
And I don't know what type of, time frame you'd like to look at. I mean, I could always hold this till the next budget cycle. That would give me, I'm roughly guessing, about 6 months to train that person into the position. So that's always a possibility too.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you looking to step down, like in FY26? Is that what your thought process was?
Correct. That's what I'm looking, yep, that is correct.
So we could look at, I guess when you're 6 to 12 months out, letting us know, and then we can address it then.
Yeah. And
You know,
we'll
I'm-
have multiple ways to address it
Yeah.
then. So, all right, so you good with that?
Yeah, I'm willing to wait till, bring it up again next budget cycle, because that would, like I said, so we have 6 months and,
Okay.
Thank you.
That works. Thank you.
okay.
All right, so I'm going to mark that as a cut then. The next request is from AMP. This is a request for a one-time bonus for, I believe, the secretary position. Bonus loaded cost of $3,500. I believe this is because the position was requested to be regraded and HR did not approve, and so this is to compensate the individual.
Do you want to hear Keith is here?
Yes.
Actually, also, Brandy, can you go to my revenues 151,132.3
Yes, give me a second.
for this requested year coming up?
Oh,
Well,
for FY25?
Yeah. Because I think something was left off there.
So right now, you're budgeting $265 for probation fines and $15,000 of device.
Correct. So I upped that up $40,000 for the revenue end, and then also if you down at the bottom there it says the interlock funds. That wasn't added in, so I'm going to be asking for the $30,000 to $15,000 where we can get through to the interlock funds, so that way I actually give you some more revenue for the
So
position.
You want to use some of the interlock fund?
I want to add interlock funds in because we'll be requesting those again this year.
How much?
If I can get to 15, it'd be great, but as high as 33, I'll ask as much. I'll take 50 from them if I can. Depends on what I get really okayed for.
It depends, because Carlene also uses the interlock fund, and she usually uses up all of the revenue every year. So whatever we give to AMP comes from their fund balance. So I'll have to go look at how much fund balance there is.
Yeah, I think there was like just over 100,000.
I don't remember.
Okay. And that's what I was going to say, if we could add that back in and we get that at the beginning of the year instead of waiting throughout the whole year. So our AMP funds are, because we supplied PO for DUI court. It's a full-time job and everything else. So I think this is some of the revenue that should come back to us before it's paid out through the state court area.
I think more of the issue is opening it up for other departments to say, hey, I've got a real high performer rock star as well.
Exactly. And that's why I was coming up to show the justification for why the one-time ask I was asking for, because I was denied the position for upgrading the position, which should have, in my opinion, I'll fight all day for it. But again, just moving to an upper grade, but it wasn't. But this person has exceeded beyond expectations in the level of certifications that they have taken on, like such TAC officers. Be dealing with the 600 different court orders coming in yearly, and making sure that all that's taken care of, and also running an officer and taking over that whole front duty desk area This is why I'm asking for the one-time money, is just the work performance and everything else.
Thoughts?
I certainly appreciate the fact that you are going to bat for folks, you know. The problem, at least for me right now, is just the fact that we have these red numbers at the bottom of this based upon how we adjust taxes, property taxes.
Yes.
And so I'm very leery of that at this point. If we have it, I don't have a problem with it. The only other issue is just the fact that, you know, I don't believe your department is fully self-sustaining like the airport. And so it's different. It's a different kind of an ask. And the money's fungible in essence. So, you know, there's still a lot of levied money that has to go into your department because these are state mandated services. At this point, I really wouldn't want to entertain it unless we could figure out a way to make this work and we can get rid of all this red.
Yes, and that's where I changed all my revenues to show where I can do that. And I understand where you're coming from and everything else. It's not a new position or anything. This is the only ask I have in the whole budget.
And I understand.
And we've gone back in and we've looked at things, things like you said, but we're looking at, like you said, the monies to fund probation. It's a statute thing. You got to put monies back into it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I go back to it's a lot cheaper to have them on probation than in the jail. So that's where you guys have stepped up so much and helped us, you know, with bringing on POs. Because when this position was developed, we were at like 7 personnel. Now we're double that personnel. Yeah. She's handling all that end of it. So when you're doubling the personnel and stuff, that's why I'm asking for this again.
Yeah.
And just changing the revenues and everything else, I think we're putting money back into the system.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to keeping it on the yellow for right now, but
I will say that I don't think we should use the logic of the revenues because solid waste is self-funded, but they're still held to the same fiscal and personnel policies as the rest of the county. You know, we don't give bonuses to solid waste employees. We don't give bonuses to airport employees. We don't give higher COLAs to employees that just because they make their own revenues. So if you want to approve it, that's fine, but it should be made on the basis of, is this something that I want to do countywide? Does that make sense? We don't really want to say employees that are covered by their own revenues get bonuses.
that's
Because
that's the one thing that
departments
makes
like
the most sense.
Departments like the appraisers, internal service departments make no money, but they have very high performing employees.
Yeah. So I think that's just the question, and I don't doubt that she's doing a fabulous job for you and keeps taking on all these additional responsibilities and not getting compensated, so.
Okay, just wanted to let you know that she's not the only one in the county doing certain duties that are being asked for.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you guys want to mark that as a potential or keep or cut?
You can keep it as a potential.
Commissioner Duncan?
That's fine.
All right, the next 2 lines are juvenile probation has agreed to cut their 2 overtime budgets. They haven't used any for the last 3 or 4 years, so they're cutting them completely.
It's fine.
Both of them for $5.99. The next line is a request from the airport to bring back their deputy director position. So they would be converting the interim assistant director to a permanent deputy director position for a total cost of $86,000 plus $3,000 of onboarding costs. And there is no tax impact. The airport is self-funded.
That one I think we need to talk more about. I'm not averse to it, but there are some details regarding that position that I think need to be kind of ironed out.
Okay.
Okay, so you just put that yellow.
Yep. Next is a $367 request from Noxious Weeds. They want to increase their employee bonuses from $150 to $450. So the total loaded cost is $367.
So I think we want to make sure that we're talking apples to apples here. So the previous request of AMP was more of a merit
Yes.
bonus. These are more of service awards that happen every year after year. Same thing with solid waste. They get a turkey or a ham at Christmas. So that's kind of similar to what this department does and probably does in other departments.
Yeah, a lot of departments have these annual employee bonuses. AMP has service awards. There's another department that has service awards, but I can't remember.
So that's all I wanted to make clear, is we're not talking the same thing as the previous request.
So $300.
And does that come out of the noxious weed fund?
Noxious weeds is tax supported,
Okay.
but yes, it comes out of that fund, but that fund is tax supported, so.
I don't know, what do you think? I know it's just nothing, but
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That's not going to really move our bottom line, so,
just keep it in there.
Okay, I'm gonna mark it as a yes for now. Next line. So this is part of the, if you remember, Nick explained at his budget meeting, he's changing the funding all around for some of his employees. So this is an $11,000 increase to noxious weeds. And then if you skip down a line, $51,000 increase to parks. And then an $11,000 decrease to snowmobile, and then a $51,000 decrease from vessel. So he's shifting the burden of those salaries from vessel and snowmobile to parks and noxious weeds.
I mean, if you look at fairness, what he's doing is the right thing as far as fee-based snowmobile and vessel had been absorbing some of the property tax burden. So I'm fine with it. If it stays one more year, I don't know that it'll hurt snowmobile more than anything. But again, you know,
No, he explained it,
okay.
so
Fine
keep it
with
on
it?
there. Yep, all
Okay.
4 of those.
Okay. There's also a $735 request from Parks to increase their employee bonuses from $300 to $900.
Is this similar to the noxious weeds, or?
It is. So you just have to decide, then there's another one for vessel, which increases from 900 to 2,700. That one's not property tax supported. And yeah, so
Is it because there's more staff, or what's driving the dollar?
Increasing the dollar amount per staff. There is no additional staff.
No, but I mean, that's why the dollars are more. It's just on a per staff basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's raising the amount per person.
yeah. You can always come back and revisit after you talk to him if you want, but that's 3 line items. 2 are,
Tax and
Yeah,
one is.
just put them on the yellow, and,
okay.
you know,
Okay, I'm gonna mark all 3, because it's all the 3, they're all under Nick.
yep.
So I'm just gonna mark them all as yellow for now.
Again, it's just a matter of if the money's there, it's there, and if it's not, then,
Yeah.
it's not.
Next is a request from Solid Waste to increase one of their overtime budgets by $599.
It's fine.
Okay. Next is a decrease in overtime for the auditor's office, where one of the people decreasing our overtime, we changed one of our positions from hourly to salaried, so we no longer need our overtime as much. It's a decrease of $1,400.
Okay.
Next is a request from the recorder to freeze their open position for a budget decrease of $68,000.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to tell them they have to keep it and they must hire this person
I know
they do
they're
not
hoping,
need.
yeah, I know they're hoping that that will offset a software they're asking for, but we'll cover the software in our B budget meeting.
Okay.
Next line is a request from district court clerks to convert the compliance supervisor position to a training and development manager. Total cost of $4,700.
And would they be continuing the supervisory role as well?
No, it's a conversion, that position, and we're going to have the lead, because it's such a small department, just take over those responsibilities. There's, I think, 200 employees under the lead. And then from there, we're increasing our liquor apportionment for magistrates to try to cover that. That wouldn't be covered with property tax.
They're also decreasing their overtime budget by $29,000. So these next two lines are requests from the clerks. The next one is to convert a clerk 2 to a clerk 3 for $2,800. Then they're decreasing their overtime from $100,000 to $75,000 for a budget decrease of $29,000.
I'm fine with both of those changes.
Yep.
Okay. Next is a request from the coroner to increase their overtime budget from $1,200 to $4,900. It's a total loaded cost of $4,400.
Is there something driving this? Do you know?
I mean, we've
I know they've added new
Added more
employees.
staff?
So if they've added more employees, I don't know that why we would need that. So we can put it yellow or just cut it, and we'll talk to them.
Well, at best yellow, unless, yeah, he wants to
Yeah, I
talk with
haven't
us
had
about
that
it.
conversation, but I will put that on my list to have that conversation.
Okay, I'm marking that as yellow. Next is a request to convert a grants technician position to a civil legal assistant position. This is an employee going from what's now transit, now to work under the prosecutor as a legal assistant. And it's actually a budget savings of $1,400.
But it's shown here as a $2,000 increase?
Are you on the line with grants technician?
Yes.
Oh, you're looking at the app. There is $3,400 of onboarding costs.
Oh, gotcha.
So the actual position is a $1,400 decrease, but they are asking for $3,400 in onboarding costs, which would be, I think that's going to be like some licensing in their legal software and some training.
Okay. I wonder if that's something they could absorb this year.
The onboarding.
Yeah, and get her transferred over before September 30th if the clerk could spare her.
We had already talked about have her go over to the prosecutor to help out when she can, when she's not working on ARPA, so we're okay with that.
Okay.
So whatever software.
So maybe we cut the onboarding and find 24 money for it.
Okay.
So if you can bring that before a
I'll-
business meeting when you're ready to actually make that transfer.
Is it just software, Brandy? Because she has a computer now.
Let me look at what it says. It doesn't give any detail. I'd have to talk to the prosecutor's office on that. So you're thinking to cut the onboarding costs?
And then have the transfer happen before October 1 and use this year's.
So then it would be to cut the entire request and fund it in this year.
Yeah. Thoughts?
It's fine.
Okay.
Next is a request from HR to decrease the service awards budget from $16,000 to $12,000. So it's a budget decrease of $4,600.
It's fine.
Okay. Next is a request to remove HR's overtime budget for loaded costs of $360 savings. Okay, next is a request from Juvenile Diversion to convert their senior secretary to full-time. This is a $25,000 cost.
Did we talk about that one?
I think he told us it was coming forward in the budget, and we did a mid-year juvenile diversion FTE. And so this would be a support position to help them.
I think we should keep that on the yellow for now.
Okay.
Okay, mark it as yellow. Next is a request from prosecutor To increase their on-call pay, they want to double it from 15,000 to 31,000. Budget increase is going to be 18,700.
I think this is another one where we should have a standard
Yeah.
in place.
Yeah, so Stan, walk us through this, because if you only have so many weeks, I know part of it, you had talked about the attorneys are going to have to comply with the state law change.
Correct. There's two parts to this. One, we're on call anyway. We have a policy where it's Friday to Friday. The attorney's on call. It's in addition to the 40 hours a week they work. Nights, weekends, holidays, they're helping officers get search warrants, giving legal advice. And basically for that week, Friday to Friday, they're not drinking. They're not able to go more than, so many miles from
Why
their
the
home.
increase, though?
Why the increase? Because $350 a week is, at an hourly rate, you blow through that in a couple hours, and there are weeks where they work well in excess to that, and so it's like you're working for free. And there's a rule change with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is requiring my office to file documents on Saturdays and Sundays. There's no exception to that. They have to log in, and it's sometimes several hours a day. It's several hours a weekend, Friday and Sunday. And I'm just asking they be compensated for that. There's just no way around it. We work off the clock.
So what's the weekly amount if it's $350 now?
Right now it's $350. I'm asking, it's $350. I'm sorry, is it?
I don't know.
It's either, we have a primary and a backup. When the primary is being asked to do two things at once, the backup jumps in. Or when the primary is unavailable, the backup steps in. I can't remember if it's $350 and $550 or if it's $350. But basically the primary, if the board can give me 30 seconds.
So it's not per hour like detective and coroner.
It's a
like a
one
stipend.
time, once a week. Yes.
But it's basically meant to be for when people are off duty.
Yes, when we're off duty, we're working. When 5 o'clock hits, everybody goes home and there's a search warrant or a crime scene that needs to be helped with, or you gotta log in on Saturday or Sunday pursuant to the Supreme Court rule, my attorneys are working. Okay, so it's $300 a week total. The primary prosecutor gets $250 for the week, the secondary gets $50 for the week.
That's today?
That's right now.
Okay,
I'm
so-
asking for that to be doubled. So I'm asking for the primary to get $500 for the week and the secondary to get $100 for the week.
Does it have to be that much?
Well, I can tell the board that I've called Canyon and Ada and some other counties, and especially Ada County, they factor in thousands of dollars on top of somebody's salary to do on-call duties. And so $500 is not a lot.
How many weeks would one attorney expect to be on call?
Well, because we have 25 to 30 attorneys participating in the on-call, you're only on call 3 or 4 times a year as a primary. You have several weeks where you're not on call because we have so many people participating. So we're fortunate to be a large enough office where you're not on call, but a handful of times a year. But when you are, I can tell you it's frequent to get 3 or 4 warrants on a Friday night. It'll happen on a Tuesday, a Wednesday night when you're supposed to be in trial the next day and you haven't slept because you've been walking crime scenes, or you're on call with officers and judges getting warrants.
You make the case.
And again,
The question is the capacity, and where it fits into the scheme of things. I don't disagree with you. I understand other counties are paying more. I would like to keep it on, but keep it as
Understand
a,
that the steps and the COLA, we're trying to make a priority.
No, I understand that. But just, the board mentioned a policy, and I just want to put forth that they're expected, they can't drink, they can't go too far from home. You got to bring your computer with you. You got to stay where there's an internet connection. You oftentimes have to carry, manuals and rule books and code books with you. And even when the phone's not ringing, you know, your mind, how well can you sleep at night wondering how many times is the phone going to ring tonight? And so it's very taxing. So thanks for the consideration.
Thank you.
So you want me to mark that as a
Yellow.
approved?
Yellow.
Yellow, okay. Next is a request from the prosecutor as well to decrease their overtime budget from 11,000 down to 1,000.
And that's a nice offset towards that 18,000.
You guys
Just
good
pointing
with
that out.
that?
Yes.
Next is a request from the sheriff to increase their admin overtime budget from 2,500 to 13,500 for a total cost of $13,000.
Commissioners, this is directly reflective of the position we are going to offset it. We're at 252% of our budget this year, and that's direct related to the amount of training we've brought locally, trying to minimize our liability through official or training, but at the same point, trying to get that other position to hopefully offset that down the road.
So I think if that position is approved, then we can go back to a flat overtime for this, but for this line item?
It should be, in the great scheme of things, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, again, this is something we've brought on in regards to the all amount of this training
Yeah.
without the one body. So adding that other person should go back and bring us back down to a more suitable rate.
Okay. So I think, we'll mark that one to reduce if that one position is approved.
So we'll keep it as a
The-
yellow.
Yeah. Okay, the position that they're bringing forward next week,
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna mark it as a yellow. Next is a request, also from Sheriff's Office, to increase the detective's on-call pay from 8,700 to 12,900. That's a total cost of $5,100.
And are we increasing the hourly rate, or what are we doing here?
Nope, the increase is directly reflective to the amount of time they're on call, but we're not getting called out, which is a bonus for our community because they're going from a standard $2 an hour. This is directly related to where we're at right now in our budget and projecting out. Again, it's a bonus for the community that we're not getting detectives getting called out and going to their normal rate of pay, but we needed to foresee with where we're at currently in our budget, this is the increase foreseen into next year at the rate we're currently at.
So help me understand, Stan explained Friday to Friday. What is your on-call time?
So,
Sure. Honestly, I don't know what the detectives
Friday
are.
to Friday, I'm seeing a nod in the back. Is that
I don't know what their hours.
similar?
I don't know when the day starts for them, but I believe it's Sunday to Sunday.
Sunday to Sunday?
Correct, the week.
Okay,
Much
okay.
like-
So to just make sure we're kind of comparing, if it's Sunday to Sunday, and is it $2 an hour only after their 410s?
That is correct.
Okay. So in that case, if they get called out, then they're getting overtime and they're not getting that $2 an hour.
Correct.
So they're not getting called out, therefore we're using more $2 an hour.
But less overtime.
Overtime, correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Again, we're simply budgeting for the benefit of, right now, we're not using the overtime because we're not getting the call-outs, but in turn, this standby pay or on-call pay is
Goes up.
increasing.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep it.
Okay, you guys are okay with that?
Yep.
Next is a request, the next two lines is to add a special duty pay to the two driver's licensing assistant supervisors. Each of them costs almost $2,500.
Commissioners, this just brings our recent change to bringing CCWs down to driver's license. These two managers and assistant managers of respective offices fall into the line of the terminal agency coordinators overseeing ILITs and CJIS access, much like jail warrants, records, and also dispatch within the agency.
So the one thing I would compare it to is this is the secretary position in AMP as far as she is also taking on those responsibilities and her pay did not go up, therefore he was asking for the bonus.
Is this an absolute must, or is this something that you'd like to try to get, just given what
Well,
these
again,
people are doing?
it's a mandate that they're required per law to manage the accounts. They oversee the audit, FBI, CGIS, and ILET's audit. So again, bringing them in full with respect to our managers, both in records, jail warrants, and also dispatch.
So these are driver's license employees that are being handed this responsibility that is a big step up as far as access to information.
To the supervisors, the supervisor and the assistant supervisor for the respective offices, because we've now put CCWs on their plate, if you will.
So if we completely treat people the same, then we could reduce the AMP bonus request from $35.96 down to $24.94.
It'd be 2080. 2494 is the loaded cost.
Right.
Yeah, but is that person in AMP, are they doing this?
Yes.
Access to all the
Yep.
different things?
Yep.
They
And
use
that's
CCWs?
But were they doing it all along?
not CCWs, but it's the same computer system that they have access to because they have to run the individuals. So,
Yeah, but they were doing it before. I thought for AMP it was because there's more staff on board. And so this
That's-
person is managing more staff-related versus,
To understand your question. Your question now?
so essentially, they're asking for this money because the supervisors now have to be in the system.
Correct.
Right.
Same as my supervisor, yes.
Right.
And this is what the compensation I was trying to go with. Also, it's double.
Is your mic on? Because I'm not hearing
Yes, I'm
you.
sorry.
Okay,
I'm
there
not
you go.
speaking clear enough. Yes, and it has the same responsibility, same across the board. When we had a previous TAC officer, it was 3 or 4 people. Now we have this new TAC officer on the position because we have so many people and doing so many backgrounds with so much more going on.
well, okay, so let me just make sure I understand it. Is this person, they started at A and they ended up at B, and because they're at B is your recommendation for the $3,000 bonus, right?
Or what you guys said to make a compensation for equal across the board.
Well, I'm not worried about that. I'm just starting with your person first because I'm
Okay.
trying to understand what your person is doing.
Yes.
So your person was, had a set of responsibilities,
Correct.
and those responsibilities had greater workload because there's more staff, or you added more responsibility on top of what they were doing,
Both.
okay? And why did HR not want to reclassify the job?
It's not that HR didn't, it ran through the system, ran through Korn Ferry, and the education remained the same, the experience remained the same. And so the tasks, whether you're in 2 computer systems or 25 computer systems, that part is still the same.
So have we run the assistant supervisor and driver's license through Korn Ferry?
Yeah.
We ran the supervisors through it and also the staff, and it did not change the grade either. Because quantity doesn't factor into Korn Ferry's analysis.
Well, I just assume keep it on the yellow for now.
Okay.
Are you talking about the driver's licensing ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is a request from the sheriff's office to change the steps of all of the current custody technicians. It's a total cost of $72,000. So they want to bring in all of their new hires in step 5, which means all of the existing employees need to be proportionately moved in their steps above a step 5 to keep them higher than the new hires that would come in at a step 5.
And I think part of that's we're not getting applicants.
That is correct, and that was in agreement with HR, and maybe Sylvia can speak to that.
And we've done this before with the custody techs, I think before a few years ago.
Control room operators?
And they were control room
Yes.
operators at that time. They were having a difficult time recruiting for that position. So just like we've done with the attorneys, we're letting them hire whether they have the specific experience or not at 97% of market. And then what happens is you have that ripple effect that you have to bump those individuals that are in their existing position, you have to give them some credit for the time that they've served in our positions. So it just rolls everybody up steps with the bringing your new hires in at 97% of market. So then you don't have like a compression parity type issue.
Who's doing the job now?
Their custody techs are, but they have several openings.
Correct. We have numerous openings, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Howe. We have 2 potentially to be hired.
8 openings right now.
8 openings. With the absence of the custody techs, I have deputies from the floor manning those positions, which in turn just continues to.
And they're more expensive than what we're asking for here.
Yep.
So in essence, this is a way to save money.
Correct. Looking forward in a turn to, and relieving somewhat of the stress of my deputized staff on the floor.
Sure. So this will be seen in overtime, hopefully, a reduction on that,
Correct.
on the jail deputy side.
Yep.
All right, so it sounds like that's a yes.
Yes.
Next is a request from the jail to increase their overtime budget from $925,000 to $1.2 million. Loaded cost of $343,000.
Does this include the reduction in overtime with the custody tax?
Not yet.
It does not, Commissioner, and obviously this is directly related to our staffing woes that continue in the jail. Obviously, we're at 165% of our overtime budget at this point right now in this fiscal year. Using those numbers and projecting out, Stephanie and I came up with these numbers again going forward. Love to think that with the people we have in backgrounds and continued forward, this in turn will be reduced with added staffing.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm comfortable cutting it only because we make you guys whole. You guys come to us and let us know what the staffing levels are, and we've been doing that for several years, so.
And my only concern with that, Commissioner, is on behalf of the sheriff, is that when we do come back, there's somebody that'll say that we didn't budget properly, and it can be weaponized for the sheriff's office. It's just a difficult task to plan when we are asking for what we know we need going forward. I understand the big want, but again, we go forward with what we need, what we want, and then go work backwards. So I just ask you consider that.
Well, and I think you guys would probably be in better shape if the jail deputy raises didn't eat up all of that budget savings.
So yeah, in FY '24, all the salary savings were used to fund the new matrix,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, which was needed. So in years past, which you don't have to do a calculation now, it's just my memory is that A balance was always in budget. In balance, you either had the staff or you had the overtime. So.
But we don't have the salary savings like we've had in the
This year,
past.
correct.
This year, so that's.
Yeah.
Yes.
A couple questions. You have a fair number of new staff in the pipeline at the jail. Is that safe to say?
That is correct. We have several
5,
employees.
10?
I'm not sure how many.
5 to 10.
5 to 10
5
in
to
training,
10?
correct?
Okay. So that hopefully will keep your overtime from going up. And, what I think may have happened here is you're looking at each of these individually, where you look at your overtime and you go, we're blowing past our overtime this year, so we should really increase it for next year. But then we have to really take into account that you got new hires, though, so it really shouldn't be going up. And I would be more inclined to keep it where it's at, knowing that you have these new hires in here. And then the other saving grace is that because these meetings are videotaped, if one of us decides to say, well, you should have planned better, you should take the clip from today and show it to that person, and hopefully they'll eat a little crow.
Understood, Commissioner.
So I'm looking at their just total A budget, and in '21, their total A budget, they were over they were 103% spent. 22, they were 100% spent. 23, they were 103%, and then 24, they'll probably be over. So it's always close every year.
I'd like to just keep it flat this year, and then, if we start to go over, let's have these discussions. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't approve additional funds, because they got to do it.
Done
But-
it for 5.5 years
Yeah.
now.
But at least this way, we can keep these numbers a little more in check.
Okay, mark it as a cut. Next is a request, another overtime budget decrease from the treasurer for $839.
Yes, that's fine.
And then lastly, a request from the treasurer to convert a Treasury Specialist 1 to Treasury Specialist 2 for $4,100.
I'm fine with that. I think some of the difference for me is that the treasurer's office is so tiny. It's not like the assessor's office where you have all those positions, or the community development where you have all these multiple positions. So it's a very small staff, so.
But it is something that is either credentialed or, like some of
I
these
believe
other.
it is. I believe it is.
I don't know. I don't believe it has to do with credentials. I think it just is the capabilities of the staff, but.
Yeah, the job duties changing as they get more knowledge and familiar and trained.
Well, certainly keep it for now.
All right, so that's everything that was on the personnel summary. I wanted to quickly look at our health insurance. So we've briefly talked about what it would look like to increase the employee paid portion of health insurance. So I didn't print this for you, but probably should have. I can give you copies later. But I had Alliant put this together so that you could very clearly see what the employee currently pays and what we currently pay. So like right here, this is our current health plan. So like for an employee, the county pays $611, the employee pays $45 per month. Now on our renewal, which right now we're estimating 11.1%, but it could end up being anywhere from 11 to 15. With our renewal next year, the employee would still pay $45 and the county's portion would increase to $684. So in talking with Alliant, they recommended that we start with looking at increases to the spouse, and then also, which is these three: employee spouse, child 1, employee spouse, child 2 or more. And then these last two are only employee and children. So up here is what employees currently pay. We go down here, first of all, we could increase the nicotine surcharge to $70. That would incur $17,000 in budget savings. We could increase the nicotine charge to $60, and it would decrease our savings to $8,800. So you can decide if you want to increase the nicotine charge from employees who admit that they use nicotine. And then I have different scenarios all the way from 11.1% up to 15%, what it would look like. And right now I only have it calculated for, I guess I can just add on the child. I mean, I don't have direction from you yet. Do you want to look at increasing the child portion as well, just like a straight across increase? I think HR and Alliant had recommended we leave the employee alone and then increase all the other categories.
So is that per pay period or
No,
per
this is
month?
per month.
Okay.
So an employee spouse right now pays $220 per month, and if you increased by 11%, they would pay $244. So the employee's monthly cost would go up $24. So like if you did an 11% increase, we would incur budget savings of $113,000. So that's literally our bottom line on the budget. We would reduce our deficit by $113,000. So we can just go all the way down to the 15% scenario. We would incur $155,000 of budget savings, and that would increase the employees in these categories by $33, $41, and $44. If we included the child scenarios there, it would increase those by $14 and $17 per month, and that would give us $155,000. And then if you increase the nicotine, that would be another $17,000 on top of that. Does that make sense? There's a lot of scenarios. It's really up to you what the level that you want to go to in increasing the employee portion. And I can even go higher than 15% if you want me to.
You didn't send that to us. I don't remember seeing that.
No, she said she didn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having something like that to look at and kind of play with a little bit. I do think that because of the cost increases, we should find a way to share that,
Okay.
that the county shouldn't pick up all of that.
I just did want to say, next week, the auditor's office and HR will have another meeting with Alliant in preparation for, I believe, our July 1st budget meeting. And they'll have May data on our claims that will either, we would hope lower it, but we're trending higher in our claims. So we'll have more information there at that point to give you some ideas. But I know Brandy wanted to bring forward, get some idea if you wanted to do some sort of cost sharing or the board's been great. I believe the last 4 years you picked up any increases.
Yeah, so I think FY20 was the last time that employees saw a rate hike for health insurance. Is that?
I believe that sounds right. Sylvia?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
But the reason we're not touching the employee only is typically a lot of agencies don't charge any premium to the employee only plan. So that would be the one thing I highly recommend. We do not raise the rate of the employee only, but we could do rate adjustments to everyone else.
Thank you.
So I can give you guys a copy of this spreadsheet, but it'd just be nice to start, and you'll hear from Alliant either at the end of June or beginning of July. But it'd be nice to know from you kind of what percentage you're thinking to pass off to the employee. And if you want to just go across all categories, or if you only want to hit the categories with the spouse, you can do the spouse categories higher, the child only lower. So stuff for you to think about.
Is there any particular group where the premium increased the most, whether it was with the employee,
I think
the
Alliant is
spouse?
telling us the increase is equal across all categories. Yeah. Correct.
Sorry, Sylvia.
The way they've calculated it from the information we have, our whole plan would experience that increase.
Right, and so it's up to us how much we pass off onto each individual category.
Okay.
And then also I did print out that sheet with all the COLAs.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, the further we get along, to know from you what percentage you're thinking for a COLA. And then also if you're wanting to cut open positions. Frankly, I don't know how we'll balance the budget without cutting open positions. But just to be looking at this and thinking what percentage you're wanting to do for a COLA, if any at all.
Okay.
So, anything else?
No, I'll have something soon if you email that to me.
The health insurance?
I think I'll just say where I'm leaning is I rather go with an increase to the health insurance and a little higher COLA than no increase and a lower COLA, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's just where I'm leaning, and I think I have off the top of my head, I have a balance there already, but I want to get that. Okay.
All right, that's all I have for you.
Okay. Thank you. Public comment. No yelling, no screaming. Okay, I think we got off easy today. It's 1:54, meeting adjourned.